Welcome to this webinar on tools, habits, and lessons within supply chain planning and supply chain project work. We will be covering really tips and tricks from both Céline and Laure-Anne based on their experience in the supply chain world. Like I said, it is recorded. If you need to leave, no problem. You can just do so and we'll receive the recording afterwards. Now, we will start with some brief introductions about their experience. Then we will go into the main discussion, which covers three key topics. The first one is about organization, structuring, and prioritization of work, and which tools you can use for this. Then we'll talk about collaboration with other departments like sales, marketing, and finance. What are some best practices, do's, do nots? And then Céline and Laure-Anne will share some resources that you can use for learning and personal growth as well. If you have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A or in the chat, and I will be monitoring that. We will have time for sure in the end to cover those, but if they are relevant to the conversation, I will bring them up during the actual panel discussion as well. Now, very glad to welcome our two panelists. So first of all, Céline Schoups, who currently, for the last about 5 years, has been supply chain manager at EG, which is a generic pharma manufacturing company. Before that, Céline has experience at Danone, Mars, and Deloitte, also within different supply chain roles. Then the second panelist is Laure-Anne, currently operations project manager at Reynaers Aluminium, a aluminium solutions manufacturing company for windows, for doors, and for facades. And she also has experience for KPMG before that. So Laure-Anne is more involved in project work. So that's a project manager role. So that's interesting to get those kinds of tips and tricks and tools as well. So welcome, both of you, and thank you for being here. Anything that you want to add or that I have missed or said wrong about your experience, feel free to mention it. No? Okay, that's fine. So then we will dive right in without any delay. And we'll start with the organization, structuring, and prioritization of work. So first, we will talk very hands-on about what is the kind of structure and the way in which you currently plan your work. So maybe Céline, could you start with sharing that? Do you do it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? How do you do that?
Yeah, so for me, since I work in the core of the supply chain, for me, yeah, I have certain fixed tasks on a monthly, weekly basis. So for example, now it's the beginning of July, the actuals of the previous month are coming in. So now me and my team will be working on managing by exceptions, adjusting the supply and purchasing plan. And yeah, then for example, also in the last week of the month, I know every month I will have to submit the constrained supply forecast towards finance to be able to make the latest lookout for Stada headquarters. So yeah, my diary's just got like fixed stuff planned in it. I know, for example, already what I'm going to do the first week of November, the last week of November, it's all fixed in there. And yeah, we wouldn't be working in supply chain if ad hoc stuff wouldn't pop up. So yeah, I always try to make sure I'm blocked for maximum 75% of my time, that I still have room to take on ad hoc or urgent topics without jeopardizing my workload.
Okay, so that's for the longer term. And then do you, on a weekly basis, then still look at the next day or next 2 days? What are some extra items that are coming in?
Yeah, so yeah, I kind of every evening I look at my days, the next days, and see, okay, this and this I need to do. Also for me, important on Friday is to restructure and determine what I have to start with on Monday, because usually in my weekends I don't tend to work and I'm completely switched off work. So Monday, if I don't prepare it on Friday, I just have no clue what I was doing last Friday. So yeah, I have to kind of prepare well to be able to perform well.
Okay, makes sense. How about you, Laure-Anne? Is that similar for you, or?
Yeah, well, it's partly comparable to what Céline does. I also look forward to look ahead to the next month, but then more from a project perspective. So I try to look forward and I list all the topics that I want to achieve by the end of the month per project. I also add blockers into my agenda. And as Céline does, each Friday or each evening, I look forward to the next day or week and adjust the schedule if needed. What I also do is since I work on a project base, I often schedule fixed meetings with my teams in order to align on priorities and deadlines so that we could reach the project deadlines and goals on time.
And that you do for the whole duration of the project upfront, then I assume. So for months upfront that you plan that.
Yeah, I do not block the agendas of my team for the upcoming months. The frequency of meetings also depends on the pace and the project phase where we are in. But indeed, it's usually planned for a few months ahead to make sure that we have regular touch points and live communication within the teams.
Okay, clear. And you both mention, yeah, of course, you're putting those placeholders or blocking your calendars. But then what other kind of tools do you use for actually putting those to-dos, putting those projects? Maybe Laure-Anne, first from your end, those projects, how do you manage those? Where do you keep them? And then specific tasks that you have for these?
Well, for the project as a whole, we have standardized templates within the company where we can create timelines and also action logs, for example, per person. That's very simple in Excel. It's easy because the list could get very long. But on the other hand, we're also working with Jira for larger cross-departmental projects. And there we can really assign topics towards persons and ensuring that each person can follow it up themselves and it's transparent for the rest of the team.
Okay. Have you tried other tools than Jira for project management, or just that one and then the Excel templates? Or did you really go into a search as to what is there?
In my private life, I also use Notion, but I do not use it for the professional life.
Okay. And then those Excel templates, that's to manage the projects mostly for your own personal tasks at work. Do you also put that in Excel, or?
I manage it in my agenda.
Okay.
So I place blockers per topic, and within the Excels, then I have the overview of what I need to do each day or within each blocker.
Okay. Okay, clear. Is that the same for you, Céline? Do you also use that in your agenda directly?
No, I've tried a lot of tools in the past, but I'm a big fan of Notion. I heard Laure-Anne also uses it in her private life. So I organize my work in Notion, use it both on the computer and on the app. And basically I have a page which is actually called My Planner. And there I kind of log a certain topic. This topic gets a certain label, whether it's to follow up or is it something that I need to do, or I'll monitor the progress. I also put a due date in there. I also put tags of which team member is involved. So what I do, for example, if I have one-to-one with a team member, I will log a certain topic that I need to follow up in there. And then as a one-to-ones progress over time, if it's done, I take it out, or as we progress, when I'm preparing the next one-to-one, I will just filter on this person's name, and then I know, okay, this topic I need to talk about with this person. And also what I do during the year, I have a separate page also, which is more private, and there I keep the wins of the team members by name, when they've done something good, when I've given certain feedback to improve or to make them grow. It's also in there. So when I do the mid-year review, year-end review, I just kind of pull that up, and then I can really efficiently prepare it. And I have plenty of examples to kind of justify their performance. And then in my private life, I also use Notion. So the projects me and my husband are following up on, they're also in there. Our grocery shopping list, for example. So for me, that's mainly where everything is for me.
Okay, nice. And you're using the free version of Notion, or are you paying for it?
Yes, I'm using the free version, and you still have quite a lot of functionality in the free version. So very happy with it.
Yeah, indeed. I think I also use it, so I think it's a good tool for people to check out. And in terms of visualization tools, so Laure-Anne, on your end, for visualizing project timelines, is it also a template that you have for that, or do you also have some specific tools that you like to use?
We have a standard template in Excel to make the Gantt chart, because it goes very detailed. But to create a roadmap, we use I often use PowerPoint, and I also use an online application of which I can't recall the name right now, but I will share it in the chat in a few seconds.
Okay, perfect. So PowerPoint for the flexibility also, just like the same then with the Excel templates that you created internally, right? With the
Indeed,
Reynaers?
yeah, PowerPoint is easy to communicate to the broader company, while the Excel sheets can contain more detailed level of timelines, deadlines, and work packages.
Okay.
So I like the combination of both. PowerPoint more for communication purposes, and Excel more for detailed project follow-up.
Okay. Do you have any tools that you use, Céline, for visualization, whether it's timelines, whether it's actual presentations?
Yeah, for me, I'm less on project management, but when I am managing projects, if it's regarding a process flow, I tend to use Lucid Charts, also the free version online, and then also for communication to a broader audience, I tend to use PowerPoint. If I need to do something quick and dirty or draw something, or note down, I usually go to Excel. But yeah, it's not that good and flexible like other tools. But yeah, I do tend to use it sometimes.
Okay. There's also, I think, I have in my head the tool Visio. I think which one of you has also mentioned in the past ones. But either of you?
Yeah, I use Visio, sorry, often to visualize our processes. So at the start of a project, a lot of factors are unknown or uncertain, and each department has its own interpretation of how the flow is going today. And hence we use Visio in order to visualize the current status and also the to-be status. Very easy. Okay. It's drag and drop of icons, and you can connect it with arrows. Very easy to use. Okay. But we have it here via a license at the Reynaers Group.
Okay. And then you also put the other tool here in the chat, I see.
Yeah, indeed. It's an online version. Timeline. Yeah, it's an online version where you can create very simple timelines online, but it has a limited amount of rows that you can add. But it's good enough for simple visualizations.
Okay. Okay, good. Some interesting tools there. Any other tools that you use, not per se to manage your tasks or visualizations, but for any other purposes that you would recommend other people in supply chain?
Not that I can think of right now.
Okay. We'll create an overview also afterwards when we share the recording. That's useful. Okay, then the other topic is more relating to like day-to-day work versus long-term work, so routine work versus long-term work. How you plan that, how you manage that combination, where you spend most of your time, which of course is also very different for both of you. Project manager is different. So maybe Laure-Anne, how does that work for you? For you, it's there's not so much routine per se, perhaps.
No, indeed. Each day is very different in my job. So I have the opportunity also to select what I want to do each day. If I don't want to do topic A, I can work on another one. And I just always look at the end goal where we are aiming to go to, and then step by step I schedule my agenda and the team's agenda in order to get there. But in my previous role, I also had some routine work, like for example, the daily inventory planning. And what I preferred was to schedule recurring tasks on exactly the same time every day or every week in order to make sure that it becomes a routine and you don't need to think about it anymore. You don't forget it. It's just a habit, and you will always do it regardless of other urgencies.
Okay. Is that also how you do it, Céline? Planning that as recurring and then?
Yeah, that's what I tend to do the same as Laure-Anne, because if I don't do that, other stuff is going to come up. People are going to boycott my agenda, plan meetings in with me, and I don't have control over my time and how I divide my time anymore. So I tend to also do recurring stuff and blocks in the agenda.
Okay, yeah, that's an important topic. Yeah, like you say, if people will impose something, or like how do you prioritize incoming requests versus what you have planned? You have that structure, maybe you have that recurring task in your calendar. How do you decide, or what do you do if something urgent comes in? You just put it off to later and you will work longer, or how do you do that, Céline?
Yeah, I think that's a daily reality in supply chain post-COVID. So yeah, this kind of stuff happens every day. But what I try to do with our my team members also is to tell them to focus on what's important now, and to think, okay, what is a priority of this, and look at the bigger picture. How is this going to add value to the organization? Is this going to impact our net sales? Is this going to impact our earnings, our cash? And to refocus and reprioritize in that way on a case-by-case basis. Because we try to be really critical in stuff that comes in. Like, if it's no added value, why are we doing it? With that kind of mindset.
Okay, so people have the capability and freedom of assessing then what is the value to the organization, or you discuss it within the team.
Yeah, I'm lucky to have a team of experienced people, so they're mostly self-steering. It's a kind of a self-steering team. So yeah, I trust them fully to make the right judgment. But yeah, if they're in doubt, obviously they'll ask me what I think or ask for confirmation. But yeah, I fully trust them to make the right judgment.
Okay, clear. And then on your end, Laure-Anne, is that you also have sometimes these urgent things coming in within those projects that you then have to manage?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And as Céline does, I also first try to identify, is it really urgent? What is the benefit for the company if we take this as a priority and delay other topics? So first assess the need of the request. That's the first thing I always try to do. And then if it is an urgent topic, I try to review my current planning. I try to shift some other tasks or things that I wanted to do. And if I can still manage everything on time, then it's fine. Then I don't need to communicate about it. But if it could generate delays in the project or in another project, I always try to communicate it transparently to all the stakeholders, because something might not seem urgent for me, but for another department, it can be blocking. So important in my role is to be transparent. And if I will be too late, or my team will be too late with delivering something, I communicate about it towards the rest of the stakeholders. And I align with my sponsor to see what his opinion or her opinion is about switching the timing and whether he or she agrees on it.
Okay, so clear communication always with them. And then it's a question to both of you. Suppose you might get an urgent request from maybe someone from the leadership, for instance, but it's a rather minor question. Would you then prioritize that over the other work because it comes from that person? It's a difficult
Usually
question,
I do
know,
prioritize that, but yeah, most of the time if I get requests from someone in the leadership team, it'll usually be at 8 a.m. in the morning. So I'll have tackled it by the time that most people are in the office. So yeah, I kind of do prioritize that because they obviously need it for an urgent reason.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, me too. And if it would be a larger task, then I always try to verify by when the person that is asking it would like to receive it.
Okay. That also relates to managing overload. What if you get more of these requests from other people? Have you been in that situation? What did you do? I think again, clear communication is key, but where do you maybe draw the line or set your own boundary? How do you both determine that? Maybe Laure-Anne, have you experienced that? Have you had to do that?
Yeah. Sometimes you get questions from all sides about the project and about specific details. If it gets a lot, or if it gets overwhelming, let's say, then I always take a step back and try to write out which jobs I need to do, try to prioritize, and again start to organizing the upcoming days or weeks. And if again there would be delays, I come back to the previous topic. I would communicate about it. But a second thing that I learned the past years, and which is very useful for me, is you don't need to do everything yourself. I learned that getting help from an expert in the company is very, very useful, and not only for myself, because on the one hand, it can save me some time, but on the other hand, it increases the quality of the work if an expert gets involved. And not to forget, it also increases your own knowledge. You receive extra information and you get a second opinion. So for me, that's a win-win. An expert can contribute to the project, so the quality will improve, and you have the second opinion, and you have a little bit of more time to work on other topics.
Yeah, indeed. Don't try to do everything yourself, but involve the right people in that sense. That's indeed a good one. How about you, Céline?
Yeah, I think Laure-Anne's point about delegating is a really good one, because my team, we're really enthusiastic about our work, and we tend to take ownership sometimes to an extreme level. So sometimes we just want to solve all the problems and get on with life, you know. So sometimes we do have to take a step back and critically think, is this something for us, or is this something we can delegate to another department because actually it's their responsibility, but they're not realizing it. So yeah, our extreme ownership also becomes our pitfall at the same time. So that delegation part is really, really important, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's that with that ownership, indeed, you can fix it maybe quickly, you think, or also people also take pride, of course, in solving problems, but indeed involving others might be a good solution. Then there's one thing, last element on this is more not the second part of this point, not how they influence planning, but I actually want to ask about, do you have some sort of KPIs or ways to measure your own way of structuring, way of organizing work, how efficient you are during the week? Do you sometimes reflect on that or see how to improve that? How do you go to that? If at all, maybe you don't, maybe you just try to manage all the work that's there and don't regularly look at how can I improve my way of structuring or setting these tasks, or am I still as fresh mentally, these kinds of things. Do you track that in any way?
Yeah, I do that in my monthly review of what I want to achieve next month and what I did previous month. I look back very easy and just visually in a slide or in a Word document. I have it currently in a slide. Everything
that's for yourself,
I want to do.
Or that's
for myself. Yeah.
Okay.
What I want to do next month. And then I look back at it and I just highlight it in red, orange, or green, whether I was able to fulfill it and to finalize
monthly
it.
self-review as basically. Okay. You do
and sometimes
like
there's a lot of red, and then I know that I took too much work, and then next month you can compensate it and try to make sure that next month is more green.
Okay, it's a good way, monthly review. You also do it, Céline, or maybe weekly or in?
Yeah, the thing is, I always try to cram too much work in a small time frame, and I think, okay, I'm going to do this and this and this and this, but in the end, you only do 2 out of the 5 things. So what I've started doing recently is I have a button in Notion, which I can start once the time starts running, and then I know exactly now how much a task realistically will take me. And it actually enables me to plan my time better. And it's a bit of a running joke in the team also when we're managing by exception, for example. Our benchmark is we have to be able to do 25 SKUs per hour. That's also something, for example, to measure the efficiency in our demand planning analysis, for example.
Okay. So very specifically for tasks, you have this kind of estimation as to how long should it take, and then you can assess if you are efficient or not.
Yeah, exactly.
At detailed level deal. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Then moving on to collaboration with other departments. The first one is generally, Céline, how do you work with them? You know, if you have meetings with them, how do they know what's going to be discussed in detail? Do you share that up front? How do you set that agenda?
Yeah, so being in supply chain, there's so many different stakeholders all over the company which are constantly in contact with on a daily basis. So I try to do a lot by meetings, physically speaking, face to face. instead of disappearing in endless mail chains. So I'm the person that will send out usually the meeting invite or take the initiative to do that, but I will always put in the meeting invite what the desired outcome or the goal of the meeting is, because I personally also hate getting meeting invites where you have no clue, the title is so vague and you have no clue what's going to be discussed, what's expected of you. It's just, yeah, usually they don't turn out to be very efficient or effective meetings. So I always add that. And if it's a meeting where decisions are going to have to be made, I always try and send a pre-read so that all the stakeholders are informed as to what's going to happen and what they would have to do extra research on, so that when we're together, we can just make a decision in an efficient way.
Okay. So actually that touches also on some of the other topics that we will discuss here. Like you said, okay, in person, you try to meet with them, correct? With other departments, rather than doing that that's online. And then, okay, you have some pre-reads that you send. Do you also, Laure-Anne, have a way of approaching that? How do you communicate with all of those different stakeholders within a project?
Yeah, that really depends on the stakeholder itself, of course. But with if it is like Céline said, if decisions should be made during a meeting, I also try to send pre-reads up front so that people can go through it. What I've learned along the way is to show and to highlight the key message and topic that you want to discuss, and not show all the details. So I just share the pre-read with the highlights, with the topics to discuss, and in the appendix, the user will have all details that he wants to know, if he wants to know it. If he's not very into figures, then he doesn't need to read it. But then during the meeting, I don't go to the appendix unless there would be a discussion about the figures. But I really want to use the meetings to discuss what should be discussed and not to discuss the figures. Therefore, I send the pre-read up front. And during the meetings, I want to discuss and not just share information.
Okay. And then you send that within an email, or is that also something within a shared folder where you have that available for those different people? How does that, like tools or formats for collaboration that you have there?
Yeah, well, if it is information sharing of documents, we usually use Teams within our company. But of course, if I'm talking with external consultants or companies, then it's just information sharing by mail. But I prefer to work with the Teams because then we can still make adjustments and everyone will always look at the last version on the Teams. If it is just about, that's one part of communication, but we also have some other tools like SharePoint here for recurring questions to make sure that it is in a fixed format, that all the fields are filled. And after the SharePoint request has been filled in, it can automatically be sent to the right person based on some SharePoint flows in the background.
Okay. And do you, after the meeting then, okay, you have a template, you might fill it in. Do you send out meeting notes on who has to do what afterwards? Does it happen within a template? Does it happen within an email? And also, do you use any tools internally, like note takers, or are you not allowed to do that? That's the second question there, Laure-Anne.
We make the notes together during the meeting, but we also record the meeting, and then it gets automatically noted by Microsoft. But we usually make a summary in a standard status update template about what we have done, what we will do the upcoming weeks, who will do it, and which risks or decisions should be made the upcoming weeks as well.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's then sent out by mail. The discussion is done during the session. The email is not to trigger new discussions. It's just the information sharing, so everyone can do what's expected from them. And then during the next call, we review what has been done and what's the focus for the upcoming weeks.
Okay. Can imagine indeed those status updates, that structure, project manager, you have a similar way of doing that always. Is that also for you the case, Céline, or how do you do that? You might have more ad hoc or various topics suddenly to discuss. Like,
yeah, for us it's I would say a bit ad hoc. Yeah.
Okay, not super structured. Yeah. Okay.
No,
I think
not
it's in many
not
companies
super.
like that.
not super. When we're internally, we're just all about chaos. So yeah, there's actually not so much structure. Yeah.
Okay. And do you use any note takers or also not?
No, we're internally not allowed to, so we have to physically take the notes ourselves. But what I always try to do if I've initiated a meeting, try to take notes during the meeting itself, because we've learned that if we don't take notes and send them around, everyone has their own different version of what happened during the meeting, and then the chaos gets even worse.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think many companies I talk to don't allow these tools still. It would solve some of these things and have one view of what was discussed.
Yeah, exactly.
But okay. And any best practices that you have for communicating with people outside of supply chain about supply chain planning or project work, Céline? How do you try to deal with that? What kind of things do you think of from their perspective?
Yeah, so you have the people outside of supply chain who talk the same language, like finance. They're also on the numbers. They completely understand what you're talking about. However, when it sometimes comes to, for example, marketing and sales, sometimes their KPIs are conflicting towards yours. So I think it's important to kind of explain also in the bigger picture what's in it for them. And try and get them to understand what your KPIs are, what your constraints are, because but in simple language, because sometimes if you go into the too technical details, it's like Laure-Anne already said, you completely lose them and they just don't know what you're talking about anymore. So yeah, we try to be clear to them, but without going too much into detail.
Okay.
And sometimes you also have to try and whereas if you're talking to the finance, you just keep the facts and figures. But when you're talking to marketing and sales, you need to also sometimes build your story more and like put a lot of words around it to kind of sell what you're trying to get your point across.
Yeah, it's an interesting differentiation between finance and then marketing and sales that you mentioned there. Laure-Anne, how do you deal with that?
It's comparable to what Céline does. Try to tailor your message to the person in front of you. And also, again, the transparency. So if complex topics should be discussed and decisions should be made, always share the information up front, share all the details so that if they have questions or if they want to see what does it mean for my client specifically, that they can find it in the documentation. There's nothing hidden. It's just open communication, and we're all just trying to do the best for the company. And that's what we try to do, or at least I try to do.
Okay. Then the final part here, I mean, we touched on it briefly in the beginning, Céline, like you try to do the meetings in person mostly. Is that also how you do it, Laure-Anne? How often, how do you also do your deeper work at home?
Yeah, I also do that. So home is really for focus work, and at the office, I try to have the meetings. I also prefer to have or a live meeting or a fully Teams meeting, and not a combination. The hybrid version works, in my opinion, less well than 100% digital or 100% live.
Yeah. Okay. I think most people try to structure it that way, indeed. Okay, let's see, we're a bit running out of time almost, so let's start with the last topic. Any kind of resources, whether it's courses, whether it's people that you want to share, that you say that's very valuable, that's where I get regular information from, or just one-time learnings. It can be related to planning, it can be related to managing projects, managing your own work. It can be quite broad here. Any things that you want to mention?
Well, a few years ago, I followed the Lean Six Sigma Green Belt training. It was very enlightening to see how you should always think out of the customer's perspective, what's in it for the customer. And in the second phase, try to focus on the topics that really matter and will solve the issue instead of focusing on everything. Besides that, I also read a very interesting and well-known book, How to Win Friends and Influence People of Dale Carnegie. It does not only help in professional life, but also in private life. It helped me.
Okay. Any specific tips or tricks that you got out of that you try to use?
Yeah, it's just all common knowledge, in fact, but it's just again, it's another time. It's a reminder, like for example, showing interest in people, asking about topics that are interesting for them, private or on the work floor. It's common sense, but it's a reminder to keep doing it and focusing on what's in it for the people, for the other person, not only for you.
Okay, it relates to the earlier point of if you talk to finance or sales and marketing, think about what's in it for them or craft that message, which might be a way in which they think, whereas finance more on the numbers. So I think that's indeed an interesting resource to learn more about that. You have any specific resources, Céline, you want to share?
Yeah, in the past at Mars, I was lucky to have two fantastic line managers who taught me a lot about business acumen, what's living on the underground of the business, what you need to be wary of. And today, what I do often in meetings, I'm not the loudest in the room, but I'm probably the most observant. And sometimes I do see certain behaviors or stuff people have said, and I tend to write that down. I also try to learn from others through feedback. In Belgium, we're not so good at giving people or giving each other feedback, whether it's positive or negative. So I do try to ask feedback, also give positive feedback, also feedback for people to have team members, obviously, that they can grow. So that's an important factor, learning by doing in the daily business. And yeah, currently I'm reading a book from Liz Wiseman about multipliers, and it's also like Laurent said, it's like common knowledge but kind of put into a framework, and there it's talking about the diminishing behaviors, the multiplier behaviors, in order actually to create value and a growth culture in an organization. And another book which I'm also reading right now is A Diamond in the Rough by Stephen von Bellingham. Because one of our focus points this year for our company is customer centricity, and he's all about customer centric experiences and stuff. So like trying to find some inspiration in that book also on how we can as a team also contribute to customer centricity.
Okay. Interesting. The learning by doing is also indeed a good one, I think, to try and foster that for others, but also need for yourself to get that feedback directly rather than just looking at other resources. Okay. Okay, so then we'll go into the Q&A section. I see there are two questions also. The first one relates to communication with management. What do you tend to focus on there? Tend to focus on overall company objectives? Do you also go into details? How do you handle that? Any of you, both of you, if you have any?
Yeah, I try to stick to the facts and figures, and also, it's depending on which leadership functionality this person has. Obviously, the GM has a broad perspective. Then I will more talk in terms of the sales, the cash, the earnings, the general company objectives. However, if I'm talking to, for example, the pharmaceutical affairs director, it will be more in depth, in detail regarding supply chain and also her regulatory quality agenda. So it depends on what kind of background this person has, actually.
Okay. So it depends.
And again, what I mentioned earlier, for those type of for management colleagues, they often have limited time, and therefore I also send the pre-reads to them so they can review it when they have time, and we can have a short meeting and discuss what should be discussed instead of explaining to them.
Okay. Okay, good. The other question relates to, it's a more detailed one related to planning, opinions on inventory planning in Excel versus ERP systems. That's a very specific one. Any strong opinions?
To be honest, I know a few companies who actually have an ERP system implemented. However, they're planning in Excel on the side. I'm actually a major fan of an ERP system, provided it's been set up correctly, and actually the virtual process flow in the ERP system, it matches what you're doing in practice. Because I think ERP system, it's much more advanced. For example, if you're planning in SAP, it's much more advanced. You get the alerts you need. But what we tend to do, because in SAP sometimes you don't see everything, what we have is we connect SAP to a data warehouse, and then in Power BI we have our reporting to manage by exception, to see where we need to re-steer our planning to achieve our supply chain KPIs.
Okay. Your opinion, same, Laure-Anne? You also managed in the past, you said so.
Yeah, we implemented here an external DDMRP-driven inventory tool,
Okay.
and that was then afterwards linked towards our ERP system to send out the POs. But the stock levels and the parameterization is here done in a separate tool.
Okay, super. And that's your preference, separate tool, or?
Yeah, we have a very specific ERP system, so I can't speak in general. So for us, it was the best solution to have an external tool. Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. There are no other questions for the moment. Maybe some people, if they watch the recording, might have some questions. Would it be okay for you if they would contact you through LinkedIn, or rather not?
That's fine by me.
Yeah.
Problem.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so we will share the recording and also some key takeaways, some tools and tips and tricks that were mentioned. So thank you very much, Céline and Laure-Anne, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.